Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's good to see you. We're going to be talking about a subject matter which I have been asked several times a lot of questions about this topic, and it's always easier for me to actually make a video talking about the subject because people can see it and I can kind of elaborate a little bit more than like kind of tweeting and answering each individual question, which I do appreciate when people do send me messages, but it gets to be a lot of answering the same thing, so I figured just making this video would be easier. I actually talked about this subject matter on Twitter and wrote a tweet thread about it, and I didn't get to go as in depth in it, but this time around I figured that I would make a video to kind of talk about that. So we're gonna be talking about being a content creator and making the jump into the gaming industry. If you don't know me, I started streaming on Twitch in 2015 and started working in the gaming industry by making that transition from streamer into gaming industry employee by working for XSplit as the US community manager in 2017, and then I began working at Versus Evil as the influencer manager in 2018, and now I will be making the jump to another position in April, which you guys will be hearing about that pretty soon, that involves kind of the same stuff. So to get started, I see a lot of people, like, a lot of people see my success and things that I've done and where I'm at in my life right now, but we have to take it back to the beginning, and that kind of explains a lot of stuff. And when I talk about these tips or advice and stuff, this is not exactly how it's going to work. It's not going to work for everybody. It's not meant to be like, this is what you do to get into the gaming industry. This may not be for you as well. People might not even want to go in this route, but this is particularly for the people who want to know what I did. And I can only speak from my experience because there are so many people who are content creators now who also do work in the gaming industry too, so their paths are different than mine. I'm just going to talk about my own. And so just to kind of get started, just to talk about how the whole journey got started. I've been trying to make a name for myself in the gaming industry since 2012. I graduated college in 2011 and I wanted to become a journalist and just like write about the news. I was always like really interested in writing for the longest time, and that's what I went to college for. And unfortunately at the time I did not have that opportunity to find a job within the journalistic world. I didn't have the experience. They did, when I tried to go for jobs, they told me I had no experience and I wasn't considered for jobs. So during this time period, I was playing a lot of video games. I was unemployed and I played a lot of video games at the time, and I was playing video games online with my friends, and that was kind of my first experience with online gaming and multiplayer games with people. And I kind of was like really getting in a place where I was telling myself, I really need to try to kind of do something about this. Like, everybody keeps telling me I have no experience, but I need to figure this out. So it started when I, found this game called Nier, which now it's become a little bit more popular because of its sequel, Nier Automata, which I still need to play that. When Nier first came out, it was kind of a sleeper hit to me. I didn't really hear about it on the news or like in gaming news at all, really. Not too many reviews about it at the time. So I decided to create like a whole website that I wanted to make about video games that didn't really get a lot of attention that were really good in my opinion. So what I did is I did a little bit of research, and I looked up how to create a website, how to write a blog. Then I looked into like YouTube and how to create like a YouTube channel and producing videos. And there was a lot of research of how to try to make that all happen. And so once I got that whole blog started, I wrote my first review for Nier, which that debuted sometime in 2012. And at this point, I came up with a name for the website. And if you guys know me from back in the day, my name was UGR Gaming, which was actually the name of my website that I kind of took upon myself eventually, which was kind of a weird situation, but I digress. So UGRgaming.com was supposed to be a gaming review website just for, games that I thought were good. And then I got to the social media aspect of UGRgaming.com and trying to get an audience to read the articles that I was writing. And for me, I was kind of already into, doing stuff with social media and all that. And I really wanted to kind of invest a lot of my time into trying to gain an audience of people who would actually like read my stuff. So I, was on Twitter, and I had a Twitter account for UGR Gaming, and luckily some people kind of caught on to it, and I started to have some people who wanted to actually help with the website. And what I started to kind of think of was like, wow, Brandon, this is like kind of your online portfolio of your work that you have online. So this is what this is what you should push forward with. Now, at the time, I wasn't making any money off of doing this website, and the people who were helping me out doing this were not making any money off the website either. But the really cool thing that I always wanted everybody who was on the entire staff of this website was to be able to use the website as a portfolio for themselves if they wanted to get any sort of job, like for them to be their stepping stone to moving into another field. And that's what I wanted for myself. And so that's kind of how things got started. And then when I Twitch was one of those websites that kind of were in the background of all the social media websites that we tried to have for ugrgaming.com. And somebody who was on the team started streaming on Twitch and as a way to promote the website. And once he saw that things like, followers are coming in, he wanted to start his own channel, which I had no problem with. So he went to go do his own channel, but we still had this channel that was left that no one was streaming on. So as the founder of the website, I felt like it was my responsibility to actually go on there and stream on Twitch. And then when I learned that you can't really market a website on Twitch, it doesn't work like that, I kind of saw that people were staying for my personality and what I was playing and things I was doing. And so that's how my kind of journey of streaming kind of started. So we'll go back to that in a little bit, but we're going to kind of go back to the UGR Gaming website and things that I did. Now, luckily for me, there were a lot of people who were actually like fans of the website and actually like contributing to it. We gained a lot of partnerships with a lot of people who were doing like gaming organizations back in the day and like trying to make a name for themselves in the gaming industry. That's what I really do love that year when we kind of started, because there were a lot of different organizations and a lot of different websites as well that were doing game reviews that were trying to, make a name and be the IGN and try to be in that field and stuff. So we kind of centered ourselves around those kind of people, like-minded people who were on the same kind of path as us. And something else that we were trying to do was marketing our brand into stuff besides just being a website. And one of the things that we were doing was definitely producing YouTube videos. We were trying to do interviews with voice actors, interviews with just people from different TV shows that we saw. Like there was a particular one that we did from there was a character from the Guild that we had in our show that we did an interview that's on YouTube, which will probably be somewhere here. We did an interview with Cass Anvar from Assassin's Creed. He did the voice of I forgot, don't kill me, but I will put the name somewhere. But yeah, we did a lot of interviews and then really cool stuff, and we tried to market our website to be more than just a gaming review website, which I think that is something really important that anybody should be doing with their brand or their channel. At this point, we're gonna kind of be switching back to content creation and the stuff I was doing. I think marketing your channel and trying to broaden your horizons on what you're already doing is a great way to not only keeping your stuff just to your channel. You're just a streamer and that's all you do. You can market yourself in so many different ways that if you want to, you can make it happen. So we were, surrounding ourselves with people, networking with different organizations, getting involved with tournaments. We did a tournament for Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. We actually worked with the developers of that game, even though that game was not the best, but we actually reached out to that company and we did a really cool tournament online with everybody. And we got 6 copies signed for people who won the tournament. That was one thing that we did. And something else that was really huge for us was, we kind of thought of the idea of making a podcast about talking about video games and gaming news to kind of go into the horizons of, people who used to listen to podcasts and people still listen to podcasts. And we call that Gamer Chat Weekly. And that ran for, we had that on, we had it on a free podcast network, Podomatic. And it had its own little categories of different genres, and it was really cool. And people started to listen to that, and it was really awesome because we got a lot of great people on that show and a lot of great interviews. And from that, we kind of got the attention of iHeartRadio. one of their sister companies, Spreaker, I've always said that wrong, kind of contacted us and said, hey, like, we love your show. We would love to bring your show to our network. And if it comes to our network, it will also be on our iHeartRadio. And this was, I think, in 2014, can't remember. But at that time, we were on iHeartRadio. People could click on their app and see us there, and it's still there. And that was I would say, one of the biggest accomplishments of the whole thing. And none of us at this point were still not making any sort of money. Like, we were probably making money for ads, but that was going back into the website. Like, I was still working retail. I worked for Walgreens for a very long time. And that was one thing I kind of kept like away from people, because one, it's like I didn't want people to know about it, but two, I like kind of wanted to not have that part of myself out there and people knowing about it. But this is another thing that I was talking about, and I always will talk about. If you're trying to make this leap into even being a successful streamer or wanting to work in the gaming industry, sometimes you have to make ends meet, and it's not going to be so easy as it may come off sometimes. So you have to, I had to pay the bills. I had to do what I had to do at the time. So I was still working at Walgreens, and I was still trying to write for the website, still trying to do the podcast. I was doing anything I can at that point. So around this time, we were, doing the podcast, and I was streaming on Twitch, and I was trying to get really involved with it. And I saw a lot of growth in what I was doing. So I was trying to figure out where I was trying to go with it. And once I learned about partnership and all that stuff, I was like, I really want to be a Twitch partner. I really, really want to go for this. And I ended up going to, I went to a town hall meeting for Twitch for the very first time at a PAX East years ago. And I remember sitting in the audience, and DJ Wheat was on the stage, and I think Soma was there too. And he was talking about their show, Twitch Weekly, that they do every Friday, and still to this day they still do it. So if you do not know about Twitch Weekly, you should know about it. It is every Friday at 3 p.m. Central Time. And at the time, they're talking about that they wanted to showcase broadcasters, not partners at the time. It was broadcasters, people who weren't partnered, and they wanted to showcase broadcasters on Twitch Weekly, but they did not have, they didn't have submissions. So right at that instance, I said to myself, when I get home, I'm going to create a video, and I'm gonna send it in for Twitch Weekly, and because this is a great opportunity for me. I want to grow my channel. I want to be a partner. I want to try to do what I can. So I ended up, going home after PAX and creating a video. Probably 2 months later, I get an email into my Twitch inbox from Soma saying, hey, we loved your video. We would love to have you on Twitch Weekly. We're gonna put your video on the show. We suggest that you are streaming at the time that this is playing, because we're gonna kind of shout you out and people are gonna come in. And that was my very first exposure to Twitch as a big platform. At that point, I was kind of streaming my little corner of Twitch, playing my Resident Evil games, and that was it. And that was my first big exposure to Twitch. I had never experienced it in my life, and that's when I started to gain some people knowing who I was. I was a little bit different. I wasn't like a lot of the streamers who were playing in the same categories as me. I was a bit different. I still am a bit different, I feel. Not in a bad way, not knocking anybody, but I feel like my personality is just very not normal at all. But with that, I felt the energy of wow, this is Twitch in its whole, that I need to continue doing this. So kind of fast forwarding a little bit, the first TwitchCon is announced, and I'm super excited because this is Twitch never had a convention. I definitely know I want to go to it. And so I hear that panels are going to be accepted. So I'm like, okay, well, you know what? At the time, I was streaming on a laptop. I first started streaming on an Xbox, and then I started streaming off of a laptop. Don't know how I did that. I wouldn't suggest it, but I was back in the day. I was streaming on a laptop, and luckily my community was so awesome, and I was able to get my very first PC I ever had in my life. It was a pre-built PC, so shout out to iBuyPower. It did stay very good together for a while. But my community came together so I can get this PC so I can stream in a better quality and do a lot better. And so I decided that I wanted to write a panel about, streaming on a budget and talking about the things that I did. And that's kind of been a big theme in my life for the past, definitely the last few years. I have been trying to give people different, just like explain to them how I did stuff so they can learn from what I've done. And so the panel was about broadcasting on a budget. That's what it was. Sent it to Twitch. Didn't think anything would come of it. Didn't think anything would come of it. And what happened months later, I get an email, and I was not partnered at the time. Now I'll say, and you'll know when I got partnered. And then I said and I get an email saying, "Hey, your panel has been accepted. You will be going to TwitchCon and you'll be getting a free badge and you'll be speaking at the panel." I was freaking out at this point because I'm like saying to myself, what is going on? I'm like not a partner. I'm going to be speaking at my very first panel that I wrote myself. Okay. So I remember that it was with Ravenheart, W. Shan, and Renee, and me. And I remember I was so nervous, and I'm sitting around like these partners, and I'm not partnered, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? But it was my very first experience of being in front of like the Twitch audience and people who I was watching being in front of me. And after that, it was like, okay, like, this is really go time. We need to make this happen. So, at TwitchCon, my friends at the time were like partying, wanting to like get drunk and all that kind of stuff. This has always been a part of my motivation. In my head, and I can still remember it. In my head at that very first TwitchCon, I said, Brandon, this is your one and only opportunity that you are going to be able to see these people and make an impression on them. You're not going to sit here and party. You're not going to get here and get drunk. You're not going to be here and be silly and let this opportunity pass by. You're going to network your ass off. You're going to talk to as many people as you can. You're going to make sure they know your name by the time you leave. And that's what I did. I did that entire weekend. And I luckily was able to talk to some people who were able to talk to me about what was wrong with my channel at the time. And there were a lot of things wrong with my channel at the time. And I was able to go in and look at what criticisms they gave me and fix all of it. And when I did that, things started to change a lot. And I noticed that my channel started to make sense. It was more cohesive. It was more understanding. People understood what they were looking for. But even after all that stuff I had done previously, I applied for partnership thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get a partner because like I got all this people are helping me out and like I'm learning all this stuff and all this. Didn't get it. Got denied several times. And I definitely was going through the motions of like, like I don't even want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a partner. Like this is not worth it. And I like did it one more time and I got accepted. And I was like, what the hell? So we're gonna kind of talk about a few different things in this aspect. So this is gonna be a longer video. I probably should have said that. So when we get up to this part, I'm gonna go back a little bit of what I was doing at that point. At that time, from when I was working on ugrgaming.com, I had a really great opportunity with a marketing agency who had reached out to me because they saw my website and they were at the time trying to do some stuff with a food franchise for social media. So a few years ago, this was social media and companies using it as a way to market to their consumers was not a thing. So this was like an activation that they were trying out to see if it would work. And so of course I came in and interviewed for the job and I got it. And this was it. And I was still working at Walgreens at the time. And I, got super, super excited. And I'm like, this is it. Like, I'm going to be working in marketing. I'm going to be learning this stuff that I've always wanted to. And mind you, I didn't go to school for any of this. I didn't go to school for business. I didn't go to school for any of this stuff. So this was all things I had to kind of self-teach myself. And so I was working for this agency for a year and I gained a lot of experience. And it was like seeing how social media worked as an advertising platform and seeing the marketing aspect of things that I didn't even realize that was going on and that I already kind of knew from the things I learned from doing ugrgaming.com. So unfortunately, a year passed and I was laid off from that job. It was very kind of disappointing because I was, it was on my birthday, my very last day of that job. It was on my birthday, and I remember I streamed on Twitch because I was so sad and so depressed, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. I didn't want to go back to my old job because I felt like I had moved on, and then I was like, I didn't know what I was gonna do. And I remember that day had so much love for so many people coming in and just like, they knew what was going on, but like gave me their love back. It was awesome. And so for the next 3 months after that, I streamed on Twitch for 3 months as a full-time streamer. And so this is why I could always give much respect to people who stream for full-time. I did it for full-time for 3 months, and it was grueling. It was hard. Having to have a donation goal of like, I need rent money, but I'm here to stream. That was hard for me to do. It was also hard for me to stream and knowing that if I did not stream, if I didn't get a donation or if I didn't get a tip that like stream, that I would be in trouble, you know? There was at one point where it was like the end of the month and I didn't have enough, and I was desperate and I did not know what was gonna happen. I literally thought, this is it. Like, you know, I've gotten this far, and you know, I might not be able to live here anymore. So, and the community came together and helped me in such a way that I had ever experienced in my life, from people who didn't really like know me in real life or were willing to help me. And I have that clip, and I'll probably put it in here, but I always will have that clip on my channel to always make me look back and remember where I was at that time, and to see how generous people were, and to never become that kind of person who does not care about other people, because people cared about me when I needed it. So after that, shortly I got to work at another social media job. I got a job finally after going back to Walgreens, after I decided that full-time streaming, I just couldn't do it anymore. I just could not like rely on other people to take care of me. It was very hard, and I couldn't do that. So I went back to working at Walgreens and working back at retail, and I was there for a few months, and it was miserable. It was very hard to come back from working at the job when I was doing social media work to working back at Walgreens, but I had to make ends meet. I had no choice, and I didn't want to depend on Twitch streaming to pay my bills, because of the fact that it wasn't fun for me. Like, it was draining. It felt like a job, and I never wanted it to feel like a job. And so that's why I went back. And so I got another job, fortunately, working with another company for social media work. And I did that for a few months. And I like talked about something on Twitter about, and this is why like I feel like for me, my social media has always helped me get through a lot of stuff. And what ended up happening was that I talked about that I wish that Twitch teams would be more engaging with the streamers on their team. I wasn't talking about a specific team, I just talk about it in general. And I had somebody reach out to me from XSplit and assumed I was talking about that, which I was not. But I did have some criticisms on some of the things that were going on, because at the time I was on their Twitch team. So I did have some things I wanted to say. And so I ended up finding out that the reasoning why some of the criticisms I had was going on was because at the time they didn't have a US community manager. It was more focused on people in the UK, which, you know, obviously I don't live in the UK, so that I wasn't really being, you know, I wasn't being affected. So at that point, I said to myself, well, I have this whole great resume. They already kind of know me because I use their program and I have been in contact with them before. You know, I have this website, I have this, you know, marketing agency background, I have this other social media marketing agency background. Let me send them my resume and let's see what happens. So I interviewed with them for, you know, 2 weeks. Didn't hear anything back, so I was like, oh, I didn't get the job. And in my head, I was like, this would like change my life. Like, if I got this job, this would change my life. I would be in the streaming industry, I'd be in the gaming industry, because like XSplit does stuff with the gaming industry, and I knew it would change my life. But I was just like, it's not happening because I haven't heard anything. So one night I'm sitting at my computer and I get an email from Twitch at this point saying, hey, welcome to partnership. We think you're a great fit for a partner. And that night I found out that I was gonna be a partner on Twitch. I had to sign all the contracts and all that stuff. And then the very next day I get a call, or I get an email from XSplit saying, hey, congratulations, you are now officially the US community manager for XSplit if you accept this offer. And this is no joke, and I can show you this definitely happened. I got partnered on Twitch one day and I got the job working for XSplit the next day, and my mind was blown. I could not believe that all this stuff that I had been doing for the last like 5 years came up to this point. Because when I tell you the story, like, I know it's really long, but this is a span between 5 years this all happened. This was not, and this was like even before I started streaming on Twitch. So I was working on a lot of this stuff before I even knew about Twitch, before I even was streaming on Twitch. So at this point, it was 5 years in and this had happened. I was a partner on Twitch and I was, I had a job in the gaming industry, streaming industry. So that's how everything started, because I was using a lot of the things that I had been doing before to get me to where it was then. So at this point, you know, I'm like working and doing all this stuff, and I become more vocal about, hey, like, you know, if you want to go the route I did, this is what things you should do. And so now, since we kind of delve into what I did, we're gonna kind of talk about a little bit of the things that I thought were helpful and that I went over a little bit in this thread that I made, but I'm gonna kind of go a little bit more in depth about it. So one of the things that I think is really important, that for someone who is trying to get in the gaming industry, who's also doing content creation, at this point you should know that, you know, you should know about video production, you should know about audio production, because when you go into your XSplit or OBS or whatever you use, like, you're doing all that stuff. You're like you're putting your video on screen, or you're putting your music in there and all that kind of stuff. I think it's very important to kind of like do some research on YouTube to find out how does Sony Vegas work? How does editing videos work? I did a lot of my early YouTube videos. I mean, they're not the best. Even if you look at them, they're not the best. But I learned all that stuff by doing research and seeing how it worked. Even when I was doing the podcast, we were recording that off of XSplit and then editing it in like Sony Vegas to like do all that stuff. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to get us like, it sounded good for at the time it was. So I think it's really important to do that, because a lot of companies, I would say, would want to know if you have that kind of knowledge, to know, like, to even have an ear for it. Like, say if there's like something happening and like say you're working for a gaming studio and they send you a trailer and then, you know, there's something off in the background, or there's an edit that's messed up. Like, they kind of probably would want you to kind of point that out and be like, hey, maybe you should go back and see that, because I just noticed that there's an issue that we want to make sure that is fixed before we put this out in the public and it looks bad. So I always think it's really good to know about audio and video production in general. That was the very first thing I learned about when trying to start all this kind of stuff. Definitely, I would say having a portfolio of your work. I've done a lot of different smaller things in kind of passing to kind of create a portfolio of my general skills I have. Like, I've done charity streams that I've done meetup events that I've created and organized and hosted. So those were kind of things that I have like in my portfolio. But I always say, like, if you don't have a website showing this, I have a Google folder that showcases all the stuff and most of the things that I've done. So because Google Drive, I think, is the most easiest and free and more compatible way for people to see stuff. I know a lot of people don't think that's a good idea, but I just think it's easier to send someone a link and all the stuff is right there. I'll have like a little example in the background so you can see what I have in there. I have like pictures of my pictures from modeling I've done, advertisements I've been in, links to websites that have featured me in it, clips from my stream, clips from like hosting things. That's always important, I think, to just have all in one place so people can see that. But you can take that information and put it somewhere else. Like, if you want to put it in the website, go for that. I'm actually trying to build a website now that actually showcases that stuff too. Another thing I was gonna say is, if you're a streamer who is doing like something unique, like doing a podcast, or if you're doing kind of like a comedy skit or something, and you do it a lot, hey, why don't you take those, like, why don't you take the audio from the podcast that you're doing on Twitch, host it on iTunes, host it on Spotify, host it on SoundCloud, host it on a podcast website or something, because that broadens your audience into something in a bigger way than just like people, because not everybody's going to go to Twitch to watch you. And that's one thing that I think content creators forget, that like, yes, like you have a made audience on your streaming platform, or if you're doing YouTube, but if you're doing other things that could be going into another medium, you could actually use it to your advantage to broaden your horizons into another audience who may never come to Twitch to watch that podcast. Maybe like somebody who just only listens to podcasts, but they love like listen to your voice, but they'll never go watch you. Take that audio and put it somewhere else, and add on to the medias that you could be doing. A lot of people tend to not do that, and it really upsets me, because I'm like, you have pure content right here. You should be putting that out there on the internet with more audience and broadening your horizons, you know? So definitely doing that. Second thing I would say is really important is that networking is very important, and this can go in a few different ways. And people can feel a certain way about it. I have always generally networked with people, and I feel like that's why I have been very successful in any sort of thing I've done, because when I meet people, I'm generally interested in that person. And if I continue to have a relationship or a friendship with this person, it is like legit. Like, I'm not doing it to get past you, or I'm not trying to use you to get like ahead and stuff. Like, the way I have always, like, I have had friends in projects I've worked on, and it's generally because I know they have interest in projects I've done. I'm probably gonna show a few clips of things that I've done that I've known of friends who I've had asked to be a part of projects I've done, and because I knew they're interested in it, or that was in their career field. So, you know, generally connecting with people, that is really important. I met a lot of my contacts just from going to conventions and you know, actually talking to people and hanging out with them. That's pretty much how the last few jobs I've had has been, because I knew people beforehand and they knew my work. They knew what kind of motivations I've done to get to where I am. And so, yeah, definitely, like, generally networking with people is always important. But if you can't go to conventions, it's always, I always think I think it's really important to go to any convention you can that's in your area, that if you cannot, I think it's always best to try to at least reach out to a company if you're interested in their product, or if you're interested in that kind of genre. Indie companies, I think, are really great for this, because they're more prone to be open to working with people, because they want their games out. They want people to learn about them. They want to have somebody who has really strong skills into knowing about that kind of world, and especially in the streaming world. I always think that's a good idea to talk to indie companies, especially when you're at conventions. Go and talk to them at the booths and like check out their games. And if you really enjoy it, hey, talk to them about like, hey, I'm a streamer, I would love to like learn a little bit more about it. Let's check it out. And another thing I was gonna say that people ask me a lot about is like, how do you know where these game positions are? And I will be honest, like, these positions in the gaming industry are not always very easy to find. I try to share and retweet the ones that I actually do see, so people will actually hopefully apply for them. And if you have been not applying to these jobs and they apply to you, I cannot help you with that. That is on you. I will say that. But most of these AAA companies, or most of these companies, most of them have like a career page at the very bottom or somewhere on their website. Always check there. Like, they're always updating it a lot. I know Blizzard is very known for doing that, and also Riot has a lot of like jobs there. Twitch does. They have a whole section full of jobs that I know streamers have applied to. So I, you know, look at the career pages. They're always updating that, so always check that out. Another thing I was gonna say is that for sure, knowing that this is not gonna happen overnight. We're on, let's see, I started this in 2012. It is now 2019. I've been working almost officially in the gaming industry for 3 years at this point. But it was not instant. It took like a few of those years for me to even get to the point where I had enough knowledge to do that. So if you are a person who wants things instantly and quickly, this may not be for you. But if it does happen for you that quickly, congratulations. I mean, I'm not gonna knock it, like that's awesome, but you have to be realistic in this kind of situation that like if this is your dream or if this is something that you want to do, you have to sacrifice a lot. And I definitely have sacrificed a lot. I sacrificed friendships, I sacrificed relationships, I sacrificed time, I sacrificed money to make this happen, and it didn't pay off until probably 3 years ago. So that's why I like making these videos, so people can learn from like the things that I did and do them 10 times better than I did. So I can just say like, wow, like at least I put this out there in the world and someone was able to benefit off of that, which that's what I want. So another thing I was gonna say is that it's not impossible. The like 3 years ago, I probably knew maybe like 5 or 6 content creators who are working in the gaming industry. Now it's insane. Like every day, like I hear, well, most of the days I hear a lot of people making a switch over. And one thing I would say is really important is that this video is not saying that you need to quit streaming or you need to quit content creation so you can work in the gaming industry. It is possible to do both. You just have to be able to schedule your time and when you can do it. I still stream. I stream very part-time. I don't really have a consistent schedule because it depends on my feeling of the day and how much work I actually have to do. I'm very busy. I have a lot of things going on, but I try to pull out as many streams as I can just so I can still have that. And I still enjoy streaming at this point. But if you need to take a break or if you can't do it, you just need to do it. You need to be realistic with yourself and say, hey, you know what? I can't stream right now, or I can't stream anymore. Or if you really want to focus on being in the gaming industry after you make that step into it, I mean, you have to do what you have to do. But it is possible to do both, but you just have to be the kind of person who is able to manage a lot of stuff. And especially like when you get into community management and influencer management, you have to manage so many different things. You just have to know a lot of stuff. I thankfully am that kind of person who's able to do multitasking and do a lot of different things at the same time, which is why I don't know how I'm still awake and doing all this stuff, because I don't get much sleep. But you just have to know that it's going to be hard work. Yes, like from the outside looking in, I'm in my dream industry. Like I dreamed of being in this kind of position when I was in the 8th grade. I wanted to work for Nintendo. I had no idea what I wanted to do for Nintendo, but I like within this year, I had a game that my company worked on that was on the Nintendo platform. So I feel like I actually finally accomplished something that I wanted to do as a child. But this industry, it's not going to be easy. And yes, like we're doing stuff with video games, but you really see the behind the scenes of how the industry works and start to understand why when certain announcements or certain like delays or things are happening, you understand why these things are happening at this point. And it really opens your eyes as like working behind the scenes, how much work and how much marketing and how much stuff happens, and understanding why if something fails, like when it goes to the consumer side of things, you understand that there probably was a lot of hard work that happened behind there and something just really just didn't work. So yeah, so I'm gonna leave with that, and I'm gonna say that I wanted to thank anybody who has definitely watched to this point. I have grown so much as a person in the last year. And so I've been trying to still create videos when I can. And I know a lot of people are looking at me and hoping to gain more knowledge. And I still want to continue to bring as much knowledge as I can to the public, because I want to do what I didn't get when I was trying to make a name for myself. Like I didn't see anybody doing this kind of stuff. I didn't see people kind of talking about openly how they made their journey. So I want to change that. I want people to gain what I talk about here and apply to what they want to do, and hopefully that whole thing is paid forward. You know, it continues on, and more continues to happen, and more people are going into their dream fields, because like I honestly will say this has been the best 3 years of my life that have happened. I have never been this happy to be waking up and going like, I actually enjoy going to work. I don't dread going into a place where I'm not respected, or that I'm like don't want to be here, you know. So I'm gonna leave a thread here of like all the information I've talked about here, including the thread that I was referring to in this video. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at contact imbrandon@gmail.com. If you want to leave a comment, or if you're watching this on my Twitch channel, you can leave a comment there too, I think, or leave a comment in the video. I'll try to answer as much as I can. If you want to share this video, that actually really does help, because it does get around to people a lot, and it does like get to people. Make sure you do that, and yeah, make sure you subscribe. And if you're watching this on Twitch, then make sure you follow, check out more of my stuff. You can find me on Twitter at IamBrandonTV, find me on Instagram at IamBrandonTV. You can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/IamBrandon. And yeah, so hopefully I'll see you in the next video, and hopefully this helped, and we'll see you soon.
My God, you had like so much change literally overnight for you. That's so awesome. You know, I just remembered something during that story, and it's that I've seen so many of your tweets like through the years, and something that really inspired me about what you do is your work ethic. And seeing that constantly, and seeing you just like creating so much stuff on so many different platforms and being in charge of like so many initiatives kind of formed my own work ethic. And it made me realize like, holy crap, there's a lot of work that can be done here. You just have to do it. So you kind of like made me the person that I am today almost. I can't even, I'm like, oh my God, I just had that realization. Woo.
Well, that makes me